Hello, this is Benjamin Marty, and I'm going to show how to participate in the iotaBuildIt project if you want to submit updates. You'll begin by going to iotaBuildIt.sf.net, and we don't have much of a home page yet at the SourceForge default page, but we do have a wiki that we're using as the home page. So you click on the SourceForge homepage and go to the iotaBuildIt website link. And if you want, you can read all about it here, of course, but if you want to participate and contribute updates, click on the participate link, and there's a list of steps here, and these are what I'm going to demonstrate. You'll need Scrolling Game Development Kit 2, and you can just download that. It's just a zip file, and you don't have to install it. You can just run the executable from inside the archive. You'll want to extract that to a folder somewhere. Put it on the desktop. Just make sure to put it inside a folder, because the files are right in the root of the archive. So I'll put it in a folder called SGDK2. And then you'll see here's an executable called SGDK2 IDE.exe. Next step is download Tortoise HG. Now, I'm not going to walk through the whole process of this. It's pretty straightforward. Just download the one that's appropriate for your platform. I'm on Windows 7 64-bit, so I have a 64-bit client. But you just take all the default options, and if you do that and include the shell extensions, then you'll see icons on the folder for interacting with source control. I'll demonstrate that a little later. Then you want to make your own fork of the iotaBuildIt repository. That's where the code is. To do that, you'll go to the iotaBuildIt code page. There's a link here. And you can just click on fork. You will need your own SourceForge login. It's easy to register on SourceForge. And every account comes with a project that you can put source code and various things in. I'm going to use my user project. You can use yours also to fork the code into. So I will call it my iota. And this is the important bit here, the URI for your repository. The next step is get a local copy. So to do that, you'll create a folder on your desktop. And if you've installed Mercurial, you'll have new items in your contacts menu, and you should be able to clone the iotaBuildIt repository. So if we go back to code, so you want to actually go to your fork, so that's in, click on your account name at the top, and on your user page you should have a link to my project. That's the project specific to your user account. And click on your code link. This is where you'll have your forked copy of iotaBuildIt, and copy just the URI piece. There will be no spaces in it, and it ends with the name that you entered. So mine ends in my iota. You copy that and use that as the source for the clone. I have an SSH key set up, so I have to put in the password for my SSH key. I haven't explored yet what the behavior is like. If you don't have that set up, you may just have to use your SourceForge username and password to log in. But then you will get the code in that folder. And the next step is, after you have the code, you should be able to double-click on the SGDK2 file. So you do that in the SGDK2 folder. Up comes Scrolling Game Development Kit, IDE. We're not going to look at the help file right now. And you should be able to simply run it. So let's go out to the world map and look at a place where we might want to make some modification. Level 1 is quite incomplete, so we'll look for something here where we can add something. So here's a robot that throws bombs, and if you know anything about the project, you can walk through the tutorial. You'll know that water droplets can destroy robots, and might be good to have nice to have a good way to get rid of this robot by having a faucet up there that will drip water on it. So let's try and do that. We'll go into, let's make sure that we're following the tutorial here. Yes, the next step is to use the SGDK2 map editor to make a change on some maps. So we're going to make a change on level 1, which is the level we were playing on. Find the place where that robot was. Find the faucet. And add one to the map. Save that. Let's test it. Let's test it in HTML5 format because that's the one that people are going to be playing in. And in order to play in HTML5 format on your local machine, you will need to embed everything that you can. So check the box to embed the images in the HTML and to embed the JavaScript in the HTML, and let's output it to the directory where the rest of the HTML content is. And it should overwrite 44, well, it's just one file now, so it's going to write one HTML file, overwrite that, yes. And if you go back to the SGDK2 folder in the HTML directory, it just wrote this file here with all the code embedded in it instead of split out. It didn't overwrite any of those other files that were sitting there. So now you see the faucet is there. It drips when you touch it. And the robot blows up. So it works. We are ready to save that and share it. Now when we share it on the web, we're going to want to split it out into the separate files because that's how we've published it in the source control and how we would like to publish it on the website. So this time when we export HTML5 code, we want separate JavaScript for object and don't embed the images. We'll use the same location we had before, and this time there should be 44 separate files. Unless you want to add one, there'll be more, but overwrite the files that are there. And let's take a look at where we are along the path of steps. So when you look at the directory Windows Explorer, you will see the icons, so we've done that. The exclamation point indicates files that have been modified since we downloaded the code. And we want to commit our changes to source control, and this is just going to be the local source control because Mercurial is a distributed version control system. So we go back up to the root folder, which is iotaBuildIt on the desktop, and select hgcommit. Now we're going to make a short description of what change we made. Added a faucet to load up the robot on level 1, and you can see the differences in the actual source code here. A lot of times it won't be very visible, but you can see this W actually represents the faucet in the JavaScript source code, and it's encoded as base64 binary in the HTTK2 file, but not a whole lot of changes here, you'll see. But it does look right, so we'll commit those changes to our local repository with the commit button. And now we should have, if you want to look at the workbench, you can see all the revisions that have been made. The top revision that is in our local source control says we added a faucet to blow out the robot. Now back on the list of steps, we did skip one step here. It says before uploading your changes for the first time, set your username. So if you go into the workbench, that is in the settings menu under the file menu. The other way to get at this is right from Windows Explorer. You can bring up the Tortoise HG menu, and there is a global settings item. So we want to be on the global settings tab, and in here on the commit section you can enter your username, and I encourage you to use your SourceForge username so you can keep track of who's submitting which changes. And you do want to do that before you do the commit if you can. So back to the list of steps in the tutorial. Before uploading your changes, we did that. Set the username, right click on the root folder. So now that we've committed it to local source control, we're going to want to put it on the SourceForge fork that we created. So we're going to right click on the iotaBuildIt root folder and select synchronize. Oops, wrong one. Synchronize. So here's the address that we originally retrieved the code from, and that's where we're going to want to synchronize our local repository to put the changes we just made back on the SourceForge copy. So I do that, and it will prompt me for my password again, probably the same story as last time if you haven't set up an SSH key. Alright, that's done. Next step in the tutorial list. Visit the hosting request for iotaBuildIt page. So this is at, well, the easy way is just to click on the link that says hosting request here. Here you can see what the actual address is. But then you'll want to use the address of your fork repository, which is this piece. Put that in here. And revision, the easiest thing to do is just use tip. If you really want to get a particular revision though, you can go back to the workbench and you would use this string right here. I'll do that just to demonstrate. And submit. It's actually retrieving all that code and putting it to a hosted directory now, so anybody can play this version. And apparently it takes a little while to do that. So that's the read-write interface. You don't want to be using that because that's going to need a password. So you want to make sure you want to go to the read-only version and use the read-only URI to get at that repository. Should be start with HTTP, not HTTPS. That's the address you're going to want to put as the repository address, and we can use the same revision. Submit that, and that will host that revision on the hosted directory. And here you can see notice that confirmed that revision, got all the files to a hosted directory, shows us what the description we put in for the change was, the date and the user, and tells us the link where it's hosted. So you can click it. This is the link you can share with anyone. Copy the link, just click on it, whatever you want to do, and it's playable from anywhere now. We walk in here, go to level 1. I haven't learned my lesson about falling in the fire. Hey, it works. Alright, so now we need to publish this. Back on the tutorial page, or the participate page, it has a links to a reviews page. This is a page in the wiki where I encourage people to share the patches or modifications they've submitted. Nothing yet. This is going to be the first one. So let's just edit this, and we can replace all those TBD values with actual content. And we revised it today, which is May 3rd, 2012. And the repository URI, make sure we still got that. Doesn't necessarily have to line up. The wiki parser will handle. I'm probably not going to bother trying to space that out because it'll look even uglier, but you just need to have the vertical pipes after each column. The next column is revision, so we'll replace that TBD with the revision that we copied here, so that whoever wants to play that particular revision can just copy it. This based on we'll start with I'm not sure exactly what we want to put for that, but I'm going to pick this where the last branch was. So basically you want to indicate whose other changes you are basing yours on. So I'm just picking this one, and that's going to be a revision value also. And finally the title. So the title of this update, we'll call it Robot Faucets. Sure. Now rather than just put a title there, let's actually make a whole page for this update so that people can review it, and we can post extra information about that, and we'll just put square brackets around that so that the wiki gives us a link to our own page for this particular row. Let's see what that's going to look like. Oh, it doesn't quite fit. I don't know how to work that out right now, but there is a link there that you can click on. This is the link you would click on to play that revision. Actually, that's only the link to the repository itself. So if we wanted to put the actual link to play that, we could go back and edit this. Since this is too long anyway, let's just abbreviate this my iota and put the URL. It'll just be the repository here. If we want to actually play it, we can put a link in the revision column. So in the revision column, I will put that revision as the text, and let's get the whole link to the page where you can play it for the URL. Now if you neglected to keep the URL like I did, you'll have to go back to iotaBuildIt.sf.net. I'm going to go back to the participate page and pretend I'm going to host it again. It'll be a little smarter about it this time. Yeah, I meant to do this. I can demonstrate that it's going to be smarter this time. Go to the participate page so I can get the link to the... I will make these links more convenient at some point. Hosting request for iotaBuildIt page, and let's put the same revision in there. Put this one. And we do want my repository, which is in my project. The read-only one. says it's already hosted here, so that's the one I want. Copy the address, and that's the address we're going to link this revision column to, so people can just click on it to play it. And let's preview that. Now this is just the repository like we saw before. You click on this, and you can play the game, play that revision, review it, whatever you want to do. And it still doesn't quite fit nicely, but there is the link to the wiki page. So let's save this. And you'll see this is red, meaning that no one has put any content on this page yet, but I encourage you to make up your own page that describes your version of iotaBuildIt or your modification, and people will be able to then comment like they would be able to on any page in this wiki, putting comments at the bottom so people can put reviews of your changes, and hopefully you get some good reviews, and we'll find out which ones are popular by which ones have the best reviews. That's all for this tutorial. I hope you have fun. I look forward to seeing your changes.